Rev up your engines!
Tippy Tail McKitty. Scotty, what's your opinion of Interstate Batteries? I'm not a fan, and here's why. For ages, when I lived in Houston, the company was always coming to me in my business and saying, do you want to sell Interstate Batteries? And what they would do was, they would give you batteries for nothing. A whole rack of them, more than that wall back there, batteries. As you sold them, they'd come once a month, you'd pay for the ones you sold, and they'd restock them. It wasn't a bad deal for the mechanic. They were, back in the day, it was like 20 bucks for a battery, and we were selling them for 60. So it's a big profit margin, right? But they're not the greatest batteries in the world. And here's what you got to know about batteries. Batteries are like eggs, they go bad. You always want to buy a battery that's a month or less old. As they put the acid in the battery when they build them, it starts to deteriorate the battery over time. If you don't use it, it loses its power over time. So some of these batteries at guys' garages have been sitting there for years. And then they've lost a lot of their capacity. You buy one that might not last a year or so and it goes bad. You want a fresh battery. That's one reason I'm not a big fan. Now, they sell a lot of them because they're giving them guys deals. Well, it's no longer $20 for a battery. It's a lot more for the mechanic who's buying it, but they still have a tremendous markup. So they sell a lot. They get a good marketing. But I'm not a fan of their products. I see a lot of Interstate Batteries going dead before their time. I wouldn't buy one. I'm not a fan. Communicates, Scotty, what does a tire sensor fault mean? It's on my dash of my 2012 Lincoln Navigator. Each tire on your car has a valve stem in it where you add the air. And inside there, there's a battery and a sending unit. It sends the pressures to a computer that when it gets low, or even high sometimes, it warns you. And that's why that light's on. Now, you have to have a mechanic with a scan tool scan it, because that means you have a problem in that system. It might be that one of the sensors is bad. It could be that the main computer's bad. It could mean various things. Normally, it means one of the sensors has gone bad. Mechanic will hook up a thing, and it'll say left front tire, and then we have a machine that we go to the left front tire. And our machine goes beep, it talks to it, and if it talks back and forth and it says no communication with sensor dead, then you replace the sensor. Or it'll even say sensor battery dead. The good ones, like I have, will say the sensor battery's dead, and then you got to replace the whole sensor because the batteries aren't replaceable in most of them. But that's what it means. You got to get it checked to see. So just out of curiosity, too, check all your tires. Maybe one of them is low, and it's just warning you that the tire is low. You fill it up, the light goes off. That means you got a hole in that tire somewhere, and fix that. Fireman August says, Camry 2009 burns oil because the piston rings. It's got 99,000 miles. What do you suggest? I suggest adding oil and still change it every 5,000 miles and live with it. They can go a long time. I've never had a customer with one of those where the engine blew up, except when they forgot to keep checking the oil because it was a Toyota and they thought, well, it never does anything wrong. Then the engine blows up because there's no oil in it. As long as you, every time it gets a quart low, add a quart, you can probably drive it for years that way. I would not rebuild the engine. That would cost you thousands of dollars, and they can run for years that way. I would just keep adding oil. Joshua Tinkman says, should I buy a 2012 Prius with newer batteries, new tires and brakes for $10,500 with 175,000 miles? I don't think I'd pay that kind of money with 175,000 miles. They said newer batteries. You know, the batteries on those things cost a fortune for a brand new one. When the battery goes bad, guys will often put in rebuilt batteries. And they usually come with a 1-year warranty because they're not as good as the new ones. If it's a newer battery and they bought a rebuilt one and it's 2 or 3 years old, it's going to go out soon, probably too. If you really want to buy that thing, find a guy like me that has a machine to test it. Have him test the battery system. And if he says, hey, it's got 90% of the life left, great. But if he says it's got 15, 20% on the battery, no, I wouldn't buy it, especially at that price. I wouldn't pay that price anyways. That's too much for that kind of mileage. Nick Salvetti says, can brand new thermostats fail? Well, of course they can. Brand new anything can fail. They make stuff like crap these days. I've gotten them out of the box. They didn't work. All they are is a little device that opens and closes when it gets hot, and they can be made wrong. That's why I tell people, really, if you're going to change the thermostat in your car, get an OEM, original equipment, factory manufactured one that was made for the car. Don't go to a discount auto parts store and buy the cheapest one they have. Hey, if it fails, your engine can blow up. Go get an original equipment one, and I've never bought one of those and had it fail. I mean, it's possible. Anything's possible. But you're going to get a higher quality one. They're just going to buy the cheapest Chinese-made one and put it in. It's crucial for the running of your car. They don't cost that much anyways for most cars. Sean Cummings says, are marine batteries safe for car engines? Well, they're safe. They're not going to blow up or anything. They're not made for car batteries. They're made so they can sit a lot longer and then start things up. Because how often do you use your boat? You know, some guys take them out 3 times a year. Now, if you put a deep cycle battery in a car that you start and stop every day, it won't last as long. It It won't hurt the car, but you're going to pay more money for it too, so it's stupid. Just get a regular car battery because it's made more for the car starting, stopping all the time than a deep marine cycle battery. I mean, it's not going to hurt anything. Now, conversely, if you put a car battery in a boat, it'll start the boat, but as it sits a lot, it'll wear out faster. It just won't last as long. Cars Fisherman says, what are the downsides of turbocharged cars? Can they overheat the engine? The main downsides of turbocharged cars are they will wear your engine out faster. All a turbocharger does is it takes your exhaust gas, it's flying out anyway, so it's free energy. It spins a turbine. The other end of the turbine compresses air, so it throws compressed air into the engine, which then gives you more power. It, in effect, increases the combustion pressure inside the engine. Well, guess what? The higher the pressure inside your engine, the faster it's going to wear out. Common sense. If your engine's cooling system works fine, it won't overheat your engine. But, of course, as it wears, that extra pressure can wear the head gasket. When the head gasket starts to blow, your engine will overheat. So, indirectly, it can cause overheating of the engine. The original turbos could make them run a lot hotter because they were throwing hot air into the engine. But all the well-manufactured turbochargers these days have intercoolers. Hot turbocharged air, before it gets in the engine, goes through a cooler so it's cooled down some. And then you don't have those problems. Crowbro says, what are your thoughts on the no speed limit German Autobahn? I believe they have speed limits on it. They have some type of speed limits on the Autobahn. Originally, of course, they didn't. Because the Germans, they live in such a regulated society. You must do this, you must do that. That they got to have some freedom here and there. And so they had an Autobahn that you got a fast machine, drive it as fast as you want. The Germans, they're kind of like manic-depressive, you know? It's a manic-depressive society. I know, I'm mainly German, right? They have this crazy thing in Germany that they're nuts about the Wild West. And they have, for vacation, people go to these Wild West towns where they have real guns and they dress up as cowboys and bad guys as sheriffs and criminals and gamblers. And that's how they spend their time. They want to pretend they're in the Wild West and they're all cowboys. So that's part of their carboy idea. They want to go on the Autobahn, go as fast as they can. Plus, they make machines that can go really fast, so they want to use them. James Self says, Scotty, have you ever used dormant parts? Yeah, I use them all the time. I've used them for decades. It's an aftermarket company that always made pretty decent parts. They see, okay, the manufacturers of the particular car made these parts wrong. So we'll redesign them and then sell them aftermarket cheaper and sell a lot. And they do. If you find a dormant part for your car, generally it's going to be a pretty well-engineered part. Now, like everything else, everybody's going cheaper and they're making more things in China. So I'm sure that the quality is down somewhat from what it used to be when they used to make them in the United States and not make them in China and stuff. But it's a pretty reputable company and they warranty their stuff. I've been using their stuff for ages. Shell says, my catalytic converters are both showing PO430 and PO420. Smoke comes out of the tailpipe. Piston rings are worn. What should be fixed first? Okay, chicken before the egg, right? Well, if it runs okay, even though the codes are out, it can still run okay. You got to fix the piston rings first. Because if you just go and buy two expensive cats and put them on, the piston rings still burning oil. The burning oil will clog up your new expensive catalytic converters. And like I say, if it runs okay, but it gets those codes, they can still run for years that way. The piston rings being worn are the more important things to fix first. And that's so expensive. Are you really going to put that kind of money in the car? Maybe you're better off getting another car than you are rebuilding or replacing the engine. Always keep in mind, used engines, you're rolling the dice. Total gamble. Rebuilt ones, same thing. How do you know how good they rebuilt? The new engines are so expensive you can even find one. Often you're better off getting another good used car instead. Oya Kev says, Scotty, what's the best manual transmission vehicle? Fun to drive. I'd have to say a Mazda Miata. I was just driving one around my grandson's friend bought the other day for $4,500. Runs like a charm. Fun. It's a real fun thing to drive around. And it's on the floor. It's hydraulic. It's real simple to shift. They last a long time. To get good gas mods, you get good used ones cheap enough. I mean, a brand new loaded one will be $36,000, but, you know, there's plenty of good used ones out there you can buy and have a lot of fun with. They're easy to drive. They're fun. Hey, why not? Get a Mazda Miata. They're the only two-seater sports cars that have sold millions. Only one in the world. So, they're doing something right at Mazda. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.